Guys, it's Heather here, and today I'm going to be talking to you all about spring traps. Yes, I'm going to cover the very basics of spring traps for those of you who are new to Clash of Clans, but then I'm going to go into great detail on how to effectively place them to get the most benefit in stopping hog riders, valkyrie, bowlers, and other troops. Spring traps are available at Town Hall 4. You get 2 at Town Hall 4, then you get another 2 at Town Hall 6, and then you get your final 2 spring traps at Town Hall 8 for a maximum total of 6. And then starting at Town Hall 7, you can upgrade your spring traps to level 2. Town Hall 8 can upgrade them to level 3, Town Hall 9 can upgrade them to level 4, and Town Hall 10 can max them out at level 5 spring traps. Spring traps cause instant death to the first group of enemies that step on it, bouncing up to 15 housing units of troops at level 1 and up to 19 troop space at level 5. For example, a level 1 spring trap could bounce a maximum of 15 archers or 3 giants or some combination of 15 housing space. Each level of spring trap will spring 1 additional housing space as it levels up. A level 5 spring trap will spring 19 housing space. However, it's impossible to be able to spring 19 single troops at once, and the only time you might catch more than 18 troop spaces is if you have different troops triggering the trap together. This is also really unlikely, as different types of troops have different movement speeds and pathing, and they're really unlikely to end up on the same spring trap at the same time together. Therefore, the most important levels for spring traps are level 1, 2, and 4, because level 1 will spring 3 hogs or 3 giants. Level 2 will spring that second Valkyrie. You get to 16 Valkyries or 8 spaces each. So level 2 spring can spring 2 Valkyrie. And level 4 will spring 3 bowlers. Each bowler is 6 housing spaces. A level 4 spring can spring 18. So that's when you can maximize that spring and spring 3 bowlers. And even though skeletons will not trigger spring traps, any level of spring trap will spring a single witch. P.E.K.K.A.s, golems, and heroes are unaffected by any level of spring trap due to the fact that they take more than 19 housing spaces. Having these troops step on a spring trap is going to disable it and make it ineffective to other troops. However, when a golem bursts in to make golemites, the golemites can be sprung by any level of spring trap. Typical placement for springs has been to place them between wall gaps. This is really effective for giants who are slow and are unable to jump or attack over walls. Other common placements for effective springs is in narrow passages between defenses. This allows you to funnel those giants and force them over the springs. This is really effective for farm bases and for lower town halls when you're getting attacked mainly by giants. Placing spring traps on the exterior is likely never a good idea because it's likely only going to be triggered by wall breakers or disabled by golems. They're most beneficial to be used on the inside of walls so that they can target troops like hogs, valkyrie, bowlers, and giants. There are many different ways that you can place springs on your base depending on what troops you want to target with the springs. Spring traps are always going to be most effective in having just a single space between buildings. You don't want to have a spring trap left in the open with multiple spaces around it, which would allow troops to run over it and not be fully sprung. So you want to have it right in front of a building where troops are going to stop and fully maximize the spring. Now, depending on the troop that you're targeting on your defense with your spring traps, that's what's going to determine where you place your spring traps. If you're using your spring traps to defend against hogs, they need to go between 2 defensive buildings. If you're using them to protect against valkyrie, then it doesn't matter if the buildings are defensive or not. It just matters that the springs are placed in a way where the valkyrie are going to path to in order to be able to attack multiple buildings at the same time. The best types of springs that you can use are angled springs, a spring that can flip a maximum of 3 hogs. This spring is the best angle of spring. It's the perfect 3 hog spring. You can always have your springs like this. Now this is an example of your average 1 to 2 hog spring. It's decent, but it's nothing amazing. It's fairly standard in what you see a lot of people doing with their springs. However, due to the way that other units move like the Valkyrie and the Bowler, you'll probably have a higher chance of throwing them if the springs are centralized this way. So what you could do if you're having to defend against multiple types of ground attacks is this type of spring. This is the combination of the first two springs and is probably most commonly used. It usually throws 2 hogs, but it also has a decent chance of throwing other troops too. Now, if you're more concerned about defending against Valkyrie on your base, then you likely want to have spring traps that are set up in the center, like in this compartment. This is because Valkyrie will go between buildings, so springs work best when you use this type of setup and is also in a relatively concentrated damage per second area. This is an example of a hog spring compartment. This is a sort of pathing that you want to look at setting up to incorporate the highest spring value on your hog return. Spring traps are becoming your most effective means of protecting your base against hog attacks. It's been important to have really good spring trap placement at town hall levels that are typically defending against hog attacks. In the past, this has been town hall 7 through 9, with less emphasis on town hall 10 and 11. However, with the changes to the giant bombs no longer doing 1.5 damage to hogs, hogs are starting to make a greater presence at town hall 10 and 11, and it's becoming increasingly more important for you to use good spring trap placement at these town hall levels to defend against hog attacks. Because of this, the classic spring theories for Town Hall 9 are now important to incorporate into the Town Hall 10 Plus designs too, such as having them on the second layer of defenses where the hogs are going to path between defenses, but where hogs are going to stop, not just where they're going to run over them. Before the changes to miners in this last update, springs were being used close to infernos and close to storages to stop those miner attacks. But with miners being ineffective since this update, that's no longer the main concern, and it's far more important to use springs as a hog defense. However, I don't believe the changes to miners are permanent, and likely we're going to see some improvements to them. So when that happens, Town Hall 10s and Town Hall 11s are going to have to look at defending against miners as well as hog attacks on their bases. But until then, in this current meta as it is right now, springs should probably be placed close to infernos to prevent hogs from being able to take it out under a freeze. Sometimes just some spring traps and some skeleton traps are enough to prevent hogs protected by a freeze from being able to clear that inferno. Now, there are multiple instances that might cause a spring to be faulty, meaning it's triggered but it doesn't spring the troops the way it should. Troops that are heavier than the max troop space are going to trigger it without being sprung. But also, if troops move too quickly over the trap, they can trigger it and avoid being sprung. This happens for goblins, but can also be true for troops like hogs that are running past a spring on the way to another defense. If the spring is not in front of a defense causing the hogs to stop, it's likely they could just run right over it without being sprung. Troops need to stop or pause on the spring trap for it to effectively spring them out of play. There are a couple other setups that you want to avoid because they sometimes cause faulty springs too. For example, having a defense, a wall, a spring, and then a defense sometimes will result in a faulty spring. Other causes of faulty springs can come into play with Teslas that haven't popped too, such as having a defense, a spring trap, and then a Tesla that hasn't been triggered yet. The Tesla pops up, and then the hogs stop and do this kind of like side pause, and then the spring becomes faulty and doesn't spring the amount of hogs it typically would had the Tesla not been there. Alright guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for me. If you like this video, be sure to like it, and if you love it, subscribe. And if you have any questions about spring traps or need any help with your defenses, be sure to join me in my Discord chat room. The link is in this description down below. Click that link, get the Discord app, and join me and others in the Clash Tutor room and getting help on your defenses and your attacks. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. Let me know how your defenses are doing, how your spring traps are being set up, if this guide has helped you, and if you want to see more in-depth guides on single traps, buildings, and troops. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.